Loss comes in many forms, and usually in unexpected ways. It can be devastating, leaving you facing an uphill struggle to go on with life without someone you thought would always be there. But life does go on, and even in the deepest despair, we can find hope. Welcome to Grief Relief with your hosts, Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. And now here's Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi.
Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Welcome to the Grief Relief Show. We're going to start out with a husband and wife team.
I love that.
Yeah, William and Beverly Feigelman. And we'll start with them on the show. They've written a great book. They're authors of Devastating Losses, and it's impressive all the research that they've done, isn't it, Heidi?
I was just talking before the show to Bill and Beverly about this, yes, because not only have they woven in some story, narrative, but they've really got all the current research from all the leaders in the field.
And they're both professionals. Beverly's an social worker, and we can talk about that. And her husband, William, is a professor emeritus at college, and we'll discuss that with them. But they also had a tragedy. They had their son, Jesse, die by suicide. And we'll be talking about how they got involved with the research and giving back. I mean, talk about giving back people. One of the things that we like to talk about on these shows is how you can go forward, how you can give back, and how you can heal those losses with service.
Absolutely, and part of their service is building awareness for this topic. And one thing that I like about them, which is also true of us, is that they have one foot in the professional world and one foot in the personal world, that they've lived it. And I think when you've lived it, it really changes you in so many ways professionally. At least it did for me.
Right. And we're going to have Vanessa McGannon is going to be on too. And we're going to talk a little bit about the American Association of Suicidology, because there are some, and we're going to show a clip from the American Association, because there are things for you out there if you've had these kind of losses to give you support and community. And then we're going to end the show with Larry Stevens, and he is going to sing One for Love. So let's get started and say hello to Bill and Beverly. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Hello,
We're
welcome.
happy to be here. We're honored to be here. It's a privilege.
And let me say, we are so sorry about your son to start with.
Thank you.
A huge tragedy.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And I read about him in your book. He's son of a filmmaker and a lovely human being in his, what, 30s?
He was 31 when he died. And it was 11 years ago that he took his life by hanging. And we miss him every day.
Yeah.
And yet we want to honor him and do things that he would be proud of. And that's what we do. Try to, leave some positive memory of him that will take his life and put it into a positive framework and helping others.
Yeah, I like that. And you're also helping other families to navigate these waters and to find hope and healing as well.
Now, you were both professionals when he took his life. Beverly, were you?
I'm a clinical social worker, and I had worked in the field of substance abuse for many years, and have a private practice, and I teach. And
where are you located?
Okay, we are in Queens, in New York area, and I have a private practice in Queens. And when Jess completed suicide 11 years ago, he was living in Brooklyn and living with his fiancée. He had recently become engaged, so we were just overwhelmed and shocked that this had happened. Death by suicide just grabs you, and you're not prepared in any way, even though there might have been a history of prior attempts, or there might be a history of depression or other kinds of factors. When you get that phone call, or you walk into the room and you see your loved one hanging, or a gunshot, it's just, you don't know if you can breathe again or face the next day again. And as a professional, so I had two major losses. It was the loss of my son, And my role as a parent, parents like to think, and mothers, that we will, you know, protect our child. That's our mission in life, to have this baby grow up and be healthy and, you know, outlive us. And also as a professional, here I am, a clinician. And
even in the drug and alcohol
in
area,
the drug
because he
and
had some
alcohol
problems
areas,
with that.
that he had use of drugs, and that he had, you know, different kinds of things going on in his life. He was very highly functional in so many ways, and we just never put the pieces together that that would be a road that he would choose, that he would get to a point where he would be so desperate. And it's, Bill talks about it being the perfect storm for him, for Jess. There were a lot of factors, and he'll share some of those. But for me, as a clinician, it was just, you know, how could I have missed this? And
right, and I think there's so many people saying, how could they have missed it? Couldn't I know? We know that sometimes when people take their own lives, it looks like they've been feeling better and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
And we'll talk a little bit about your book, Bill, and show it to them, because this book, I will tell you, if you've had a loss, a suicide, you need to get this book. There's no question about it, or in drug and alcohol abuse. Can you hold it up a little bit like that? So I'll hold it for you.
The book is based on a study, a survey we conducted starting in 2006 with 462 suicide bereaved parents, and then a couple of hundred others to add up to 575 bereaved parents, some who died by drugs, some who died by accidents, some who died by natural causes, and we compared and contrasted the groups.
You know, I've been looking at this book, and I would like to, one thing that I would like to hit on is the stigma. You talk about like 3 areas where people are stigmatized. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's really important.
The centerpiece of the book, the stigma. People afterwards avoid the bereaved parent, the whole family, in fact, and they just don't know what to say, don't know how to deal with them, and the best strategy, they think, is to give them space and let them breathe, but they don't show any compassion. And people want and expect, especially after their worst ever loss, that people are going to embrace them, people are going to hug them, people are going to say, I'm sorry, but instead people say nothing.
And let me say one thing I noticed in the book, that for people, it's not just suicide. You also say in drug and alcohol deaths, that people do that same kind of stigma, right?
But we found half of the bereaved by drugs, half of the bereaved by suicide heard after the death of their loved one blaming comments, blaming the child. You know, he was no good, she was no good, you should have done better in getting them therapy. And the worst possible thing to say to a bereaved parent is that you don't need to think about them anymore. They're gone, and you know, you should be glad they're gone. I mean,
they were just a problem anyway.
They were
just a problem.
We heard someone report when her dog died, the vet sent a card from the office, so sorry for the loss of your pet. When her son took his life by suicide in the same small town where people knew about this child, the pediatrician that had treated him, who had known him all his life, just avoided the family and never acknowledged the loss. Wow. So even professionals who have trouble and struggle with this sense of it's a shame, it's a stigma, and we don't know how to deal with this, and they're uncomfortable and they avoid.
You know, my husband and I do a compassionate friends group, and we sometimes, you know, fairly often have people either die from, kids who have died from drug and alcohol or suicide. And one of the things that I've noticed is that dads, when they come in, they seem to be a little more angry and have a little more trouble with therapy. Am I wrong? You know, they feel, you know, just really...
Well, we don't find that many men involved in the grief experience, in joining groups and seeing therapists. They hold it in more. There's more externalization. They might do some kind of a memorialization thing in trying to memorialize the lost child or a person, but they won't be as tearful and as emotional about it as women are usually.
Mm-hmm.
So is that okay? I mean, I have women who get in touch with me and say, my husband just recently, 6 weeks ago, someone I know's son took his own life. And actually, it was a drug overdose. And she said to me, my husband isn't dealing with it. And I'm like, you know, is that true? I mean, can I deal with it the way I want to deal with it? Can men deal with it the way they do? Or?
No, men dealing with it in different ways, and people have to respect each other's way of grieving. And it's not a matter of there's one right way to do it. You know.
After Jesse died, I needed therapy, I needed groups, I needed support, and we went together, and then Bill said, it isn't helping me, I don't need this. And I continued on my own, but for Bill, he found comfort in doing literature and review of suicide and reading everything he could to try to make sense and understand how this could happen. So he needed to work that way first before he could come around to the emotional and to the sense of personal loss. And we have to respect that.
About it, and I was shocked to see so little out there about suicide grief, and even more so about grief associated with drug bereavement loss. There was nothing out there. Our study, based on 48 people, was the first systematic survey done with a drug bereaved experience.
That's amazing, especially given that it's increasing at a rapid rate.
So I want to thank you guys for being on it. I've got to show your book once more and say devastating losses, how parents cope with the death of a child to suicide and drugs. And I will tell you, this is an amazing book, and you definitely need to tell other people and let people know about this, because this just got so much wonderful information in it. And is there some way that people can get in touch with you too if they want to?
I would say our email address, feigelma@ncc.edu, or Feigelma, feigelma@aol.com. Either way will get to us.
Thank you too so much for being on the show today and for all the wonderful work that you do.